Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your host, Jefferson Belfort and Brian Hernandez. This is episode 51. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's Saturday morning. I'm a little groggy still and everything, but we had some fun night of basketball last night. Finally, after the All-Star break, it was kind of weird, like not having basketball for a couple days and everything. But I'm sure the players love it and being able to take their break. But yeah, it was kind of sad not having basketball. But now we finally have some basketball, and there's been some pretty good games. So a lot to talk about. Jeff, how are you doing?
Not great. My team got 50 burgered, or pretty much 50 burger at the end of the game last night. You know that picture of The Last of Us, which I haven't watched yet.
You
Um,
gotta watch. It's
the
good.
Last of Us the Last of Us character where he's like holding his chest and
Oh,
he's just like outside depressed. Like that's me right now. Like after after seeing that game. But there was some good slated games that we will get into today. Um but let's just go over the topics that we'll be doing today. And those topics will first be the Hawks have fired Nate McMillan. What are some next steps for the Hawks and their future? Next, we will be discussing Clippers and the Kings, a historic game. We'll discuss that in detail. And then we will also be discussing the NBA has released, oh, not the NBA, but basketball has released their Hall of Fame list finalists for 2023. We will be discussing some of the headliners, and that's how we will wrap this up. Oh, with a weekly roundup,
Yeah,
actually,
a
to round
quick
it up.
weekly roundup.
Exactly, perfect. So, Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Perfect. So before we start today, um, we are actually starting something pretty new. We are from this episode and all episodes moving forward are going to be sponsored by Lockspread. With the NBA playoffs fast approaching, games like last night with the Clippers and the Kings, Lockspread is going to be your new best friend to get your daily fantasy picks in. Got a hunch on Kawhi's points over and unders? Maybe you want to take a chance on Giannis's rebounds over and under, or taking Tatum on the steals over is the lock of the century. Lock spread allows you to take the challenge in multiple sports, not just NBA, but with options in the MLB, NFL, UFC, etc. Whatever player, whatever game is played that night, know that Lock Spread will have you covered. Remember when you log into Lockspread to use our promo code, which we will place in our bio, to take advantage of all the sign up bonuses. If there's a game, it's always a lock with Lockspread. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Lockspread, for the sponsor. And right into
Ooh, Jeff, the
right into
professional.
our
I see. I like it.
right into our first segment. Is our topic is I think it's about 4 or 5 days since this has happened. But Nate McMillan is no more as the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. Throughout the year, there's been rumblings of this. Nate McMillan even mentioned that he was strongly considering retirement after a Shams report that he literally bambasted was he bambasted Shams for how he reported on it and claimed that there was nothing on the verge of happening at that moment. But we are a few months since that happened, and McMillan just is not the coach anymore now. So, Brian, what do you think about first Nate McMillan leaving, and then we could talk a little bit about the future of that role and the Hawks.
Yeah. So first, Nate McMillan. It's kind of sad to see because I mean, this is kind of just like it feels kind of history repeating itself. We saw it last time. I who was
Lloyd
the
Lloyd
That's
Pierce.
exactly what I was gonna say, but I wasn't exactly sure. Lloyd Pierce got fired. Nate McMillan took over. Hawks had amazing end to the regular season, made it to the conference finals and everything. And Nate McMillan was like kind of their hero. He was touted to be amazing and everything. And fast forward now, what, 2, 3 years since that's happened, really the team's only gotten better in terms of talent, but it's just not working anymore. Like he lost the locker room. It needed to happen. Like right now, where we're recording today, the Hawks are 500. They're 30-30 record, and they're just not where they wanted to be. They made a big move this offseason in getting DeJounte Murray, and so far it's just really not worked out. It's strange. They needed some type of switch up, and you can see like we know that the Hawks were trying to trade John Collins. We know that they're trying to do it. Asking price is definitely way too high because they've been trying to trade him for the last 3 seasons and nothing's happened. So if you're not going to switch anything up and it's already past the deadline where you're not really getting any new players or anything like that, they got Sadiq Bey and all that, but there's no substantial impact in terms of trading a player like a John Collins. So you got to switch it up another way. And the only thing that made logical sense was to get rid of Nate McMillan, which is sad, but like you mentioned, he was even kind of like, it's just not working out. I don't think the players are happy. It
Yeah.
seemed like Nate McMillan wasn't happy. So it seemed just like to be the most logical solution. Jeff, before I go any further, what do you think?
You know, I think it's kind of funny to me. The Hawks situation kind of was like the low key version of what was happening with the Nets. It's just like a quiet
Mhm.
version of it. Like it just didn't cause as much rumblings around the league. You have a star that is disgruntled, and Trey. Um, Rumors about him wanting Nate McMillan out. You have a player that's been in trade rumors for a while, for a long time. That just like, and I think we spoke about that during the trade deadline. Is like that just carries like a cloud around the organization and that person. Like you're kind of ready to move on, and they just aren't ready to recuperate the type of assets that are being offered at that time. They think you're valued for more. But like at that point, you don't even care. You just want to move on, right? Like you don't want to be in that same situation where you know you're not wanted, you know? That's just human. That has nothing to do with being in the NBA. Every human knows how that feels, you know, and you just want to move forward. But John Collins has to say through, and he's being professional about it. Um, as you mentioned, they have a subpar record. They're only 500 at this point. But like, can you blame them in the East? What the East
Mm.
looks like? We struggled in the beginning of the season to believe that they would be anything to compete with the top seeds in the East. Um, I think that one slot opened up in the East where someone could take it, to be thought of as one of the contenders, but I just don't see like I don't see them being that team, you know. So I think the reason why I say it's a little bit like the Nets situation, I speak more to the aspect of like when it's all in turmoil, you know who's going to go first, and it typically is going to be the coach. Is like the starting of like the dominoes effects that happen. So that not as not as shocked that that is what happened. But I also am a little upset that it had to happen because we're talking about a guy that led him to 2 playoff berths, a guy that also, uh, went on to bring him to the Eastern Conference Finals, you know, and to have a little bit of strife after not even a full 2 years and get rid of him is kind of alarming. It's not like it's unknown in this league now that it's commonplace to move off of someone that quick. But think about this: it's only been 2 years since the Lloyd Pierce situation flared up, and we're already on to him moving off of this team, which is ridiculous. As a sidebar to that as well, I'll just say that Joe Prenti is going to be starting up as their interim coach. His last stint as being a coach was when he was with the Bucks, when Jason Kidd was replaced, and he helped the Bucks get to a 21-16 record in the remaining games of that season, and led them to playoff series where they eventually lost to the Celtics in seven. So Joe Prunty can coach a little bit. He can
Yeah.
let. We can't to rule him out as that is an opportunity. Usually, interim coaches now are given a real chance to see if they can get that job, and Joe Prunty will be given a chance.
He's gonna be given a chance, but it looks like it's not going to actually. He's not going to be the next head coach because there's already a bunch of talks we see. Like I think Woj just reported of like, well, one, there's a bunch of candidates and all that, but the one that seems to be leading it all is Quinn Snyder, which former coach of the Utah Jazz. It's pretty interesting. So maybe Jeff. So
Hmm.
have we had like a brand new head coach take over midway through season before? Or because I feel like that's usually like all right, you write it out and then at the start of the new year as a new coach.
Again,
Yeah.
once again, another reason why I feel like there's a lot of parallels in this situation with the Nets
Mm-hmm.
and the Hawks, right? Is that it is unprecedented, right? To have a coach like be hired in the
Yeah.
middle of the season and start off. It typically is the interim tag is placed on someone, and you allow that guy to play out the rest of the season because moving along with these conversations now does not help them. And even in the case with the Nets, at least it was a couple games into the season, but you already understand, like the season's already moving. It's hard to bring in a new face to change the dynamics at that point. And I just don't think that's fair to a candidate as well,
Yeah.
to have to come in through through the storm, honestly,
Mhm.
like and just try to settle in. I do like the idea of Quinn Snyder. I even like the idea of Quinn Snyder when he was linked with the Nets, right? um in my mind, I think that he is a great head coach. He has some ties to the Hawks. He was on Mike Budenholzer's staff when he was the head coach of the Hawks. So he has a little bit of history with the team. Obviously, the front office a little bit different now with Landry Fields heading at the GM spot, but he does have a background in there, right? So like
Yeah.
that just makes him a cool candidate, right? But you said there is some other names that are linked. Um, this guy's now become like the habitual like name that everyone ties. It's kind of like in the NFL. There's this offensive coordinator named Eric Bieniemy that is typically in like coaching cycles. Like that's what Kenny Atkinson is now.
Yeah.
He's been linked with this as well. You have the associate head coach of the Bucks, Charles Lee. A lot of honestly, like when you look up Charles Lee's name, a lot of good talk around like who he is, and praise on him as a coach. So I see that like if they are open to just like looking into this for real, we're not gonna do make that decision now in the middle of the season. Especially what makes it like clear to me that it's not gonna be a decision that's made in the season is that they have individuals that they're considering that are in the middle of the season in playoff contention,
Yeah.
head coach opportunities. And those teams have to approve them to speak to them.
Yeah.
So I think it's an off-season decision.
Yeah, that makes the most sense because too usually when a new head coach comes in, they bring in their own staff and everything, and so like definitely seems like it's too much of a change mid-season like that. How do you feel about the Hawks' chances going forward? Because hey, last night we just saw the Hawks versus the Cavs, and the Hawks blew up and they played fantastic. And it's like, what was stopping them from doing this when Nate McMillan was there? Do you think this is another like, all right, you got the Hawks, getting rid of one of their head coaches again, and then now they're gonna be hot like they were 2 years ago? Do you think it's that scenario? How do you feel?
I I always feel that that is a precedent of what happens as well when a coach leaves is that the team kind of like wakes up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they're like it's like the reality check, right? Like we got to get our act together. And sometimes I think it was Sam Mitchell that said this on NBA TV before, and I think he said it around the time when Jack Vaughn became the head coach of the Nets. Is that for players, sometimes it's something to prove, right? Like, yeah, he's out. We were saying that he needed to be out. Now we're gonna prove that we're so much better without him. So there's an aspect of that plays a part into this and the decision making or the outcomes of the season for players or teams. I really do think though, you are usually what your record says you are at that point too. Um, they will play up and play better, I think, but ultimately it's not going to achieve what they're looking for. Like from what we see from their record now, we could see at best a playoff team. Not seeing I'm not seeing in my mind a contender at this point. So like it's I always discourage like firing someone midway through the season. I think especially this far down into the season, we're about a week out of March. Like what's the point of
Yeah.
not just letting him finish out the season?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I wonder how the locker room was for the Hawks, and like if it was a kind of like a toxic thing, and that's where they're like, what, let's be done with it or not. Yeah, it's the Hawks right now. I just don't really see them making any noise, especially like in the playoffs, even though they have this pretty crazy, offensive firepower that theoretically should be there. And like we saw last night in a 7-game series against the Celtics, against the Bucks, against the Sixers, even though they beat the Cavs last night, even against the Cavs, like if they made it to the fifth seed, it's hard to imagine the Hawks getting out of the first round. If they're even able to make it there and they get out of the play in or whatever. Yeah, it's a little tough, and it's kind of disappointing when you traded, 3 first round picks and all these players for this Johnson Murray, you give up Kevin Herter and all that, and this is where you are right now. A little disappointing for the Hawks. As a Knicks fan, I'm like low key. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty nice. Leave Trey Young should leave the Hawks. It'd be nice. But
Well, then that's
yeah.
the next question though, too, though, is there is rumblings now of the potential of him being moved, him being the next superstar to request out, right? What do you think if he is moved is a good place for him to go? And I have a question to tag onto that as well.
Hmm. It's pretty tough. I feel like always moving like a point guard like that, it's pretty tough because most teams like have I don't know, maybe a pretty substantive kind of point guard. Trey Young has that reputation of like kind of a ball hog. Not a lot of people actually like playing with someone like Trey Young. Um, it is tough. I don't know if I really have anywhere that I can think of right now. Where do you have Trey Young going if he does get traded?
I think an interesting place, like if they do decide to roll the dice and package a couple of the things that they have, because like I just think this team has a lot of assets, and I think they usually just sit on assets rather than do anything. But like I think they're prime at this point to add someone like a Trey Young, try to see if you can fix things that are going on, around the team and go for a run at the Eastern Conference. And that team to me is the Orlando Magic. Like I think that they have a package that they could put together that would kind of fix up the order of what that team is, and put Trae Young together with Paolo to have a dynamic duo. I think it's a little bit of like copying the same archetype of what they have in Atlanta, but a better version of it because I think that Paolo is a better version of what John Collins is.
Yeah.
And I don't know how Trey Young is on like the respect thing with another star side of things. I think that like you said, it's hard for him to work with other with his teammates. But I think that that changes when he sees that there's like probably someone that's equally as dominant as you or like are more dominant than you that you're looking at, even though he's a rookie at
Mhm.
this point. And in Paolo. Another reason why I like the fit for him to potentially go to this route is he would be paired with Jamal Mosley, who is turning out to be a pretty decent coach. You know,
Yep.
he had some time like helping with the molding of Luca when he was in Dallas. So like I like the idea of him going there. I think that the Magic's is a perfect place for him to collective fan base too. Like honestly, I remember growing up watching Orlando make those runs for the finals, and honestly, you can't say that there's not real fans there. Like there's real fans
There.
that he could get behind, not too far from where he is already, and it would be a good opportunity, I think.
I wonder how Orlando fans feel about this, or like feel about
Mm.
that, because I feel like someone like Markel Fultz kind of coming up and coming on his own. And finally, he's not number one pick what you expected, but he's getting back into form. He's looking really good. They do have a lot of assets and just a lot of really good players. Yeah, they're getting Jonathan Isaac back. He's been playing pretty well so far. The Franz and Paolo combos is pretty intriguing, and they're a really fun team. And adding someone like Trey would be pretty interesting. One that I came up with that I kind of like, and I feel the Wizards need another ball handler. I feel like they need somebody else that can actually just do something with the ball. I feel like Bradley Beal kind of by himself, dribbling it and all that. He's not really that type of player. I feel like he needs to play off somebody. And also like Porzingis kind of needs to play off somebody. So they're like in an awkward form. I would love to see like if Trey Young can kind of or yeah, fit in there, maybe you give something like Kuzma and some other stuff and all that. I don't know what else they have. But I would kind of like to see that. I feel like the Wizards, they're a team. They're not trying to tank. They're just not. They're not good enough. They're nowhere near close, and they desperately need a point guard. I just watched the game against them. They versed the Knicks last night. I don't even remember who was the point guard on the floor. Like they're really not great. Um, I that's one that I wouldn't mind. I feel like yeah, the Wizards need a little bit something else. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. But do you think the Hawks should trade Trey Young? Is it time to blow it up?
See, that was going to be my
Uh
question.
huh.
But you know, I like your pairing first is what I said, what I wanted to say. I do still think that the situation with the Wizards are dire. So like if it was me and I had a choice, if I was Trey Young, um, I would head towards Orlando more
Oh, for sure.
than I would head to the Wizards. But to answer your question, I don't think it's time to blow it up. I think I think I think half of the problem of why it like in his mind he probably thinks about it are like why it's starting to become a question about like whether or not for him to leave is because now, and it's crazy to think this, is like it's only been like 4 years, 4 years,
Hmm.
4 years in the league now. Um, we're looking at this guy and we're wondering, and like a lot of people are just wondering, oh, they won this trade. Dallas won this trade. Like Luka's so
Yeah.
much better. And like I think it puts him in a place where he has to prove himself so much. And that has to be a lot of weight to carry, right? Because like he equally has had a good enough start to his career as Luka. And like it's kind of crazy and asinine that people really just like go hard about it. Obviously, the eye test shows you that Luca is a superb player, but the Hawks did not get a scrub either.
Yeah.
Like,
It's tough because it's like you're comparing a top 5 NBA player versus a top 20 NBA player. So like they're
mm,
both amazing. It's both kind of crazy that, I believe there are top 5 picks in both of them in
mm,
the same draft that you get like players even just that good.
mm.
But it is a little bit tough because like I think Luke is in that next dimension, but Trey is definitely not a scrub or anything like that.
It almost makes the pairing of like Luca being in Dallas with Jason Kidd an even more interesting like coincidence, right? Because like I feel like the best comparison for that, where it was like a draft day trade, not draft day trade, but like two guys that were like synonymous with one another, was George Hill, um, Grant Hill, and Jason Kidd are synonymous because of their place in the draft where they were co-rookie of the years, and kind of in the same fashion, like one guy becomes like the darling of the two, where Jason Kidd became more of the darling, and like he led his team to finals. He's won a finals. He's done a lot. He was in the league for a while, right? And then you have Grant Hill, who did a lot of great stuff too, but he just didn't get the same accolades as Jason Kidd after the fact. So it feels the same way here with Trey and Luca, and like I said, it makes it it is a little strange that that Jason Kidd is his
Yeah.
coach. And then honestly, thinking about it right now too, I think Grant Hill spent some time on the Hawks, like in his
I
career. So
think
that would make
so.
it even, yeah. Actually, you want to know what's funny? I think he is like a part owner of the
Is
Hawks. So that makes it even more interesting, is like
history repeating itself.
yeah, he's a co-owner of the
Wow.
Hawks. So that I wonder how like Jason Kidd and Grant Hill look at this and like probably think about that same thing too.
Yeah.
Like,
That is
but
kind of
yeah,
that's a good comparison.
yep.
Yeah.
That's it for me on the Hawks at least.
Yeah, I think that's enough. Hawks, we covered them a lot. Excited to see what happens going forward for them. But do you want to move on to our next topic?
That is correct. I am ready. um Yesterday, the Clippers and the Kings played. The Kings sitting in the third spot in the West. They've had a stranglehold on that third spot, but like teams have been creeping up
Hmm.
lately, and there's been a lot of disrespect, to be honest, to the Kings name.
Oh yeah.
Um, the last couple weeks as teams are making trades and have made trades and put themselves in a better place to kind of catch them, I would say. So a lot of teams are now talking about we could beat them like you if the Lakers get to the sixth seed, they could beat them. Oh, the Mavs are definitely going to beat them
Yeah.
if they stay in that sixth seed. And I think that it kind of reminds me again, another comparison to the Nets situation, but like it's like when I said that you are what your schedule says you are, it's hard to believe that sometimes, but it really is the truth. When you're already descending in the standings, what that really means is it requires you to work a little bit harder at the end of the season to get to a place where you want to be, right? So now you're going into this a little bit more fatigued. Kings are in a position where they're now in the third spot in the West where they're not as stressed as a team that is trying to ascend their way up descending standings. They have a target on their back, definitely, but they know that if they continue to do what they've been doing all season long, they'll still be in a good position, right? Move down one seed. Is that really that bad when you're a team that hasn't gone to the playoffs in like 16 years? Like, like that's not a problem at all. It's probably closer to 20 at this point.
Yeah.
But uh it's for me, I just think that they are in a good position to climb the seedings. And I really went off on a tangent with that one.
No.
But the disrespect has really started to get to me on like what they're doing, because of what they're doing this year. So um as I digress, going back to the game last night, yesterday they were playing the Clippers, who are currently, I believe, in the fifth seed, and they are right on their tails. They're about 2 games and a half behind them. So if the Clippers won last night, they would have gained some momentum and be very close to overtaking that third seed. But the Kings actually outlasted the Clippers in a 2 overtime thriller. That The final score was 176, 175. That is, I believe, I saw the reporting was that is the fourth highest. Oh no, the second
Second,
highest
yeah.
scoring game in NBA history. Brian, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's one, like you said, second highest. I think I heard like the first highest was somewhere like in the 1990s or whatever, and I think that was like 180 something, like high 180s for both teams. But that was actually a triple overtime. So this one could have easily gotten there if the Clippers, lasted a little bit longer. No, I mean this is pretty crazy. One, I didn't watch this game live, but this is the Malik Monk game. Malik Monk went off. It's kind of crazy how many players just even had 40 points last night, because I got off. I was on a high. I'm like, no, Julius Randle just scored like 46. Like it's a good night. He's gonna be nice. And then you got Malik Monk scoring 45, De'Aaron Fox scoring 42. There was a couple other guys I saw as well just scoring 40s. Pretty crazy that this is the talent in the NBA. And if you actually watch like any part of this game, you really see like this isn't a game that you were just like, oh yeah, they're not playing defense and they're just running up and down, like they're just scoring, it's nothing crazy. Like, no, these teams were were competing very hard, and just guys making crazy shots the entire time. I i still i think if I actually watch this again, like in a 7 game series, I think I'll still go. I'm gonna put some disrespect on the Kings name, in the sense of like, I think I would still or I think the Clippers would win. I would put money on the Clippers winning. But hey, it just shows you, like you're saying, the Kings are a good team. The Kings got some talent, and Mike Brown, maybe he should be in consideration for a Coach of the Year kind of candidate, because no one expected the Kings to be this good. We knew they were going to be good, but not right now. Like you're saying, third seed in the West, ahead of the Warriors and Dallas and the Clippers even, and the Suns. Like, no one
Suns.
expected all of this. It is pretty crazy right now. And hey, Mike Brown doing amazing. But Jeff, what are your thoughts?
You know what? Another thing too is like the Kings have closed the gap against the Grizzlies as well too. They're
Yeah.
only a half game out of them. So, how I see this game as, I think it's more of it. I see it as statement game for the Kings to let the world know, let the league know we're on the map. Like that
Yep.
was that is what I like about this game is that they were able to show that. It's like we could compete with the best of them. Like this is a formidable duo that we're talking about in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Like
Hmm.
the fact that there was 3 guys that had 40-point games. And when you think of the 3 guys that
Yeah.
you could have said, Malik Monk probably would not have been the
No.
highest scorer in your mind when you say that, when you see these 2 teams. So, like, that's one aspect that I'm like, you know what? Like, first, kudos to Malik Monk. He did it while he was at the Lakers as well. He's really been taking a level, a progression to career and like respect his game a little bit more. He's a firm reason why I believe that NBA teams should not be giving up on players as quickly as they do. Because I think it happens way too often now in the
Oh
league
yeah.
where players are given up on. And Malik Monk is the perfect case for that. 45 off the bench, he had the best plus minus, not even on his team, on the court. The best plus minus ever in the court. So like for him and then Darian Fox cementing himself as like a real leader in this game is a big thing. Obviously me too. I did not watch the game. Uh I am gonna try to see if I could hop on League Pass and see if they had this recorded, like full recording of this to give it a look. But like one thing that I was watching or noticing from the highlights is that Clippers were pretty much running away with it in the
Hmm.
fourth quarter, and they took their foot off the gas at some point in the fourth quarter. I want to know um how the Kings players feel about that? Like, do they feel that, the Clippers took their foot off the gas on them necessarily? Or was it just, we just straight up beat them? Like, we came back and we just, like, got it from the mud and, like, put it on our backs and won this game. I could see them saying that, but I do think that there's an aspect of the Clippers just giving this one up.
Yeah, I think it's probably like you're saying, kind of just like taking the foot off the gas kind of thing. I mean, we see kind of just even the Clippers themselves of the regular season isn't that crazy to them. Like they're playing, but it's not a big thing. They're just trying to preserve themselves really for the playoffs. So I can see like, hey, when they thought they were done, then hey, let's take it a little bit easy. And then you got the Kings going off. That's why, like, at least personally, I'm not going too crazy against the Suns doing this because super impressive game. But like you mentioned, Malik Monk, he's not doing this every game. He's not, at least as of now, he's not the type of guy that's going to score 40 points consistently, 30 points consistently, but he will give you 20 consistently. So he's a really good player. Um, but I would like to see it do it a little bit more. But fantastic game. Hey, guys get hot, and nice job to him.
I agree. And I think I'm done with the
All right,
Kings
let's go on
and the
to our next
Clippers.
topic.
All right. Our next topic is the NBA, the basketball. Basketball has released. The Naismith Memorial has released. I guess that's the best way to put it. The Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame has released their finalists for the Hall of Fame this class of 2023. Some true headliners in this list of players, coaches, and to start off that list, we're looking at guys like Paul Gasol, Nowitzki, Tony Parker, Greg Popovich, Dwayne Wade, and then even I love the Becky Hammond like add to this
Hmm.
class as well. Um, they beat off a few other people. Was also nominees that I think will at some point continue to be or make their way into being being Hall of Famers at some point in their careers. It's Mark Jackson was one of the nominees. You know, the NBA on ABC color commentator. Um, Another interesting name that was on that ballot was Chauncey Billups. He wasn't
Yeah.
a finalist, but like to see their names there as well just shows you like how much prestige it is that these guys were able to make this list and be counted as some of the finalists for the Hall of Fame this year. Brian, anything you want to add to these names on these guys? Like, I don't know if it's a question of of did they get it right or wrong, but I really don't think that's really as much of a question.
Yeah, no, like I mean, this is a lot of the names you touched on of Dirk, Dwayne Wade, Tony Parker, like Gasol, like these are guys that at the end of their careers, you already know, like they're Hall of Famers. They're easily Hall of Famers. I would like to see, like you're saying, like someone like Billups also get in there. Like these are some really like high quality NBA players. I would say, I don't know, personally, I kind of feel like sometimes there's some guys in the NBA Hall of Fame that like, or I wish it was kind of like a more of a higher prestige, to be honest. There's some guys that I kind of don't necessarily see like, oh, like you see a guy like, Bill, like last year we had the inductees of Bill Russell, Chris Webber, Paul Pierce, Chris Bosh, Tony Kukoc. You gotta like I don't know, like you see sometimes there's some guys that I feel like don't necessarily fit in, and it's
Mhm.
a little strange. I do like having, like we're saying, those other guys. Chauncey Billups, I feel like he's like the little bit of borderline, but I think he's gonna make it. But no man, it's crazy. These guys have
Mhm.
some crazy careers. It's nice. I actually visited the Basketball Hall of Fame, I think a year or two ago. So cool. So
Beautiful.
cool. It's one of the it was one
It
of the
is.
coolest experiences that that I went to. I was a big fan.
Made
Highly
it out to
recommend.
Springfield, I see.
Yep.
But, you know, I will say something to what you just mentioned, like the Bill Russell aspect of it. So, like, just so the listeners know too, is like the Bill Russell aspect is Bill Russell was already in the Hall of Fame.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
they added Bill Russell as a coach
Yeah, yeah,
aspect to the
yeah.
Hall of Fame. So, like, I understand. I
Yes.
agree on that side. It's like if you
Mhm.
induct someone, I don't think you really need to make a designation on like inducting them off of them being a coach or a player if that
Yeah.
takes away slots. I don't really 100% know how they do the Hall of Fame, but like I hope it's not a slotting sense of how they do it because then that makes no sense. Why would
Yeah.
Bill Russell's already Hall of Fame and you're going to give
Yeah.
up this spot for someone else like that's just that could be really annoying to me. But I will say me, the significance of this draft starts to feel like, you know, a lot of the people we're seeing in this drafts are part of our childhood now.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
like
crazy.
it's getting to that point. Like, it almost is even alarming to the point where, you know, our whole like adolescent life to this adult part of our lives now has been spent with LeBron James being in
Yeah.
the league. Yeah, most of our adolescence heading into our adult lives now has been spent with LeBron James being at the helm, right? And to see someone that was drafted in LeBron James' same class, an amazing player, right?
Mhm.
Like first ballot. This is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and LeBron James still playing is kind of crazy, you know? Like
Yeah.
it just goes to show kind of like how easy it's gonna be. It's not even gonna be a question when he becomes up for the ballot, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's probably gonna be I don't know if they go off unanimous. The Hall of Fame for basketball just doesn't seem like baseball where it's a little bit more rigorous to get
Yeah.
into the Hall of Fame.
For sure.
Um, but definitely a lot of accomplishments here. You got guys that won 6 rings, not 6 rings, 5 rings and Greg Popovich and Tony Parker. You have Dirk Nowitzki that honestly, some people will say that one of the most truest rings that
Oh
was
yeah.
won in the last 20 years was won by Dirk Nowitzki. You have Becky Hammond being able to make that transition. Well, she's being inducted as a player, but I'm going to still talk about the other aspects
Yeah.
of her NBA or her basketball life. Is transitioning from being a player to ultimately being an assistant coach on that great Spurs team as well. And then transitioning into the WNBA to now heading a WNBA super team of its likes in
Hmm.
Las Vegas Aces, I think they're called. But she's had an amazing career as well. But I think the winner of the night, like if they're ever giving a winner for a night on something like this, is the Spurs organization.
Oh yeah.
Is three people that played a pivotal part in their success are being inducted, and kudos to them.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Well said. Well said. I don't have anything else more to add. Do you want to go on to our weekly roundup? Very quickly, rapid fire.
Yes.
All right. So we got Russ to the Clippers. So last time we talked about the buyout stuff. Now some of this stuff actually happened. So Russ is on the Clippers. We saw him play a little bit last night. Jeff, first initial thoughts.
Uh, basically, like I said, didn't see the full game.
Yeah.
But seeing off the highlights, it looks like it's a fit for what. Well, we knew it worked when PG and
Hmm.
Russ were together to a certain degree in OKC, and it's easy. You can actually make the argument that if you squint your eyes a little hard, this team kind of looks like that OKC team, just with a better version of
Yeah.
Carmelo and Kawhi Leonard at this point. Um, you know, I think they're a formidable team. Russ makes them a little bit more interesting. I'm rooting for them. I have no I have no ball in the game anymore for like contention for a championship.
Hmm.
So I guess I'm going to start looking at teams that I might be interested in rooting for. And the Clippers look like an interesting situation with Russ. Ironically, not what we've been saying for the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see this experiment. I feel like a lot of NBA Twitter and a lot of analysts have really been hounding the Clippers for picking up Russ. Like, I really see a lot of people just saying, "This is why did they do this? This is a disaster." And I'm interested to see how this actually turns out. Next, Myers Leonard making a return. He did some sketchy stuff on a live stream and got kicked out of the NBA for a little bit. And now signed a 10-day contract with the Milwaukee Bucks. Jeff, any initial thoughts on this comeback?
So one thing I'll say, kudos to him for accepting what he did was wrong, changing and trying to correct himself from it. He had like an outside the line report this week that I watched on him where he explained the steps he's taken since that moment. In contrast to someone that we've seen this year
Mm.
that was met with similar situation, but it just goes to show you how much of a sliding scale it is in the league when
Oh yeah.
you actually one of the people that affect dollar signs. So that just even though I would say that individual did not say anything,
Yeah.
but it was of the same elk, and just to see how drastically different their situations have played out just goes to show, like I said, with the sliding scale of things. But I'm happy that he's rehabilitated himself and his image. It's not like he was doing anything crazy, but you know what I mean. He
Yeah.
rehabilitated his image in that case. So now seeing him get an opportunity with the Bucks, I'm happy for him. But on basketball aspect of it, it is pretty scary. If this guy winds up like figuring his game out again, or he hasn't lost a step, I don't know if people remember how
Hmm.
helpful he was as a backup center to that Heat team and how pivotal he was to that 2020 run in the bubble to the finals, right?
Yeah.
He is still, if he still has that game, he is a very, very good backup center to have behind Brook Lopez, where he could stretch the floor. He has size, and he can impose that size on people. So I really don't hope it works out because but, I am happy for him to be back in the league.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty sneaky move by the Bucks to pick up Myers Leonard. Like, hey, this could be pretty impactful, or maybe he's just gone in in a few days. So we'll see what
Well,
happens. Next, Pat Bev. We were talking about like, hey, maybe he goes here, maybe he goes there. Pat Bev went to the Bulls, and on top of this, he even declined an offer to join the Golden State Warriors. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Pat Bev going to the Bulls?
I think it's more about, the aspects outside of the actual decision. I think it's, just so cool nowadays to have, players actually be part of the media is like, Pat Bev was pretty much telling people what he was gonna do
Yeah.
through his own podcast, and narrowed down the search down to 2 teams, and you heard it from the horse of the mouth. The horse of the mouth. The mouth of the horse, to you heard it from the mouth of the horse, so, like, you didn't have to speculate it, you didn't have to hear it from Woj, which Woj actually reported it, and then Pat Bev's, like, quote tweeted it, so that was pretty funny. Um, but it just shows like there's this is going to be an interesting time to have players in the media making their decisions and letting us know live on their own, not letting
Mhm.
someone else make that decision. And then it brings me to Draymond Green. I believe he's a free agent this year.
Mm,
That's going to be interesting to see how he plays out his free agency with his podcast on the volume podcast,
yeah.
whatever company whatever it's called. But but yeah. Now on the basketball side of things, upset. He's his team beat me by 50 yesterday, so like I don't got much to say on that. But like, even though they won last night, like I just don't understand the move for him. I don't know if contending is. I don't think contending matters to him anymore.
No.
He's just trying to be somewhere where he's wanted, and he's wanted in the Bulls. Kind of crazy. You have the opportunity to go to the Warriors, you say no though.
Yeah, I don't think Pat Bev's more of a ring chasing kind of guy. It seems like he's more of a he just wants to get some playing time and he wants to play. And hey, the Bulls are the perfect spot for that because no one else really wants to go there right now because it's a little sketchy over there. So, all right, moving on. Lonzo Ball, Jeff Lonzo Ball, sadly, he is out for the rest of the season. He's been having those left knee issues all this time. He's officially shut down. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
It's first for Alonzo on the Lonzo Ball aspect of it. So sad to have an injury that if we think about on a calendar perspective, it's been almost a full year, and it's not there's not an injury that typically takes this long anymore. Like
Yeah.
if we were in 2006, 2005, it makes sense that you have a knee surgery and you're out for nearly a whole year. But we've advanced beyond that, and the progression and training and recovery around this that it doesn't typically take this long. So it's concerning and shutting him down, not because you're just saying like, not just the aspect of you saying like our season's kind of over. It makes no sense to like rush him back. It's you're shutting him down because like there's no prospect of him feeling good enough to even think about doing something on the court,
Yeah.
the stories around him not being able to walk at times, to being very not comfortable with the pain that's coming from the knee. Like this is not normal, and there's a lot of talk about this is like a one in a million chance, like of what's happening with his knee. And I wonder if like it's grounds to potentially see or sue whatever doctors has been treating him in this time, because
Hmm.
I know that this was not the timeline that he was given or expected. I don't know what perspective on like salary he's sitting at right now, but this is gonna affect his bottom line at some point. And if he's coming close to, I think he signed outright to Chicago
Yeah.
when he got there, so he did get some money. But like this is gonna affect his future dollars and like how the rest of his career. His career could literally be jeopardized at this point. So I feel for the guy.
Yeah, he's only 25 years old. It is pretty sad to see some guy having like this kind of substantial kind of type of injury, and I've seen some people that like follow the whole Ball family stuff because their whole aspect in themselves, that this is kind of looking like what's going to happen with this whole family. I don't know, maybe it's just a byproduct of them, playing basketball their entire lives and how they've been grown up by, LeVar Ball and all that, because you see so Lonzo Ball has a knee issue all the time. LeAngelo Ball, I believe, has some like ankle or foot issue that he's been dealing with for the past like 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, that's been stopping him from playing. LaMelo Ball's been having a constant ankle issue this whole time, and maybe it's just, hey, these guys when they're developing or something like that, just playing basketball constantly. It seems like I don't know if their bodies can handle it right now, and it's a little scary to see that happen. So hopefully this Lonzo Ball can actually play basketball again, and hopefully this doesn't actually trickle to a guy like LaMelo Ball as well, who's so far has been seeing has a higher potential than Lonzo Ball. And it's scary though. 25 years old. It's hopefully we can see him play again, because he was a lot of fun to watch when he could play. So yeah, kind of crazy. Next we have, this is the last thing I'm gonna put these both together because they're kind of on the same aspect. But for the good guys, the guys that have been waiting in the wings, waiting for their turn, Jack Vaughn and Joe Mazzulla have been announced in this past week. They have been promoted to officially the head coaches, the full-time head coaches of their respective teams. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the promotions for Jack Vaughn and Joe Mazzulla?
Um, I think of it as well, it's a good thing for guys that have been on the bench that took their tutelage from other coaching and righted the ship for themselves. Missoula is very young. I believe he's 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So first, that's just astonishing for him. Good for him as well, that he has this opportunity to do something like this
He's
or
34.
be 34. Wow, it's not even. The man is not that far off from where we are.
Yeah,
I'm sitting at 8 years till I'm at there, right? So
yeah,
he's not that far out, right?
crazy.
But um, yeah, no, that just makes it more astonishing that he was able to take this opportunity and then succeed with it. Obviously, that's like handing someone a Ferrari though and then saying,
Mm-hmm.
drive it. like yes, like it is going to be a beautiful. It's amazing. Half of the ability is that it was already great before you had it,
Yep.
but it still requires you to drive it, and to make it work how it's supposed to work. So the fact that he's doing that with the Celtics is something that he should be praised for. He was the All Star head coach. Life comes at you fast. Like it's really coming at him fast right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for Jock Vaughn aspect of things, I am happy for Jock Vaughn because um, you know Tristan Thompson said this last week on NBA Today, and he's like, "It's about damn time that he got this." And honestly, is the truth. Is like I think we mentioned that when he was given the opportunity to take the interim tag off, and they said that they were in the works of, like, giving him a 1 year contract. Now making it a multi-year contract gives him even a little bit more room to breathe and be the coach that he needs to be. But like, I think a lot of the struggles he had in his first stint as a head coach with that Orlando Magic's team has prepared him for this. JJ Reddick on his podcast, Old Man in the Three, mentioned how he was a part of that team. He was on his last legs of being at with the Magic at that time when Jacques Vaughn got his first opportunity as a head coach, and he thought that Jacques Vaughn was an impressive coach. It's just it wasn't the coach they needed at the time, and he's happy that he's in an opportunity where he kind of learned from that situation and he's able to now some of what he's learned from great teams like the Spurs. Um, I can't say great teams like the Nets, but like, but he worked with great players on the Nets, and now applying that into how he wants to coach is going to be great for him. I think he has great opportunity right now, and can't wait to see what he winds up becoming in this time.
Well said. I also listened to that episode of the JJ Reddick podcast with Mikal Bridges, and yeah, it's a pretty
My
good one.
boy.
Pretty good.
Brooklyn Bridges, bro.
Brooklyn
That's
Bridges.
Brooklyn Bridges.
Hey, he's you can see why everyone likes him so much. He's a really fun player to even watch and also just hear. So that's pretty awesome. Um, hey, yeah, we got it done. We got it. So, yeah, Jeff. Any last words? That's all I have for the weekly roundup. Any last words for this episode?
Um, no, actually, I think we're in for an interesting run to the playoffs.
Hmm.
I want to tell all our listeners, please, we appreciate the listens. We appreciate you sticking along with us during this time. As you've enjoyed this podcast, or we hope that you enjoyed this podcast, we would love for you to share that enjoyment to other people that you think this would be relevant to. We love to keep the conversation on multiple teams around the league. If you have people that you consider or you think would be a good add to possibly be a guest and give us some perspective on said team, like the Phoenix Suns or the Trailblazers or any other team that we don't really get to talk about as much, please let us know. Reach out in the DMs on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Feel free to reach on any of those and let us know some of your ideas. Please comment. Please like. We like all of this engagement. If you enjoy it, I'm sure more people will enjoy it as well. And the only way we can get more people to watch us is by your likes and your views and your
Ooh.
reposts.
+1 to everything Jeff said, and also check out Lockspread. All the information to sign up is going to be in the description. And yeah, this has been a good one. This has been episode 51.
That's my move now.
That's your move.